Hey, what's going on, guys? I thought I would just do a video to kind of give a 101 on home theaters. There's a lot of great YouTubers out there that have a ton of great content. Let's see, I've listened to Youth Man, Home Theater Dude. I mean, there's plenty of others that have some great content, but I thought I'd just kind of give an overall 101 on setting up a home theater and kind of my thoughts on the home theater setup. Yeah, so let's dive into it. I guess the first decision part is the speakers. And you may hear that someone's got like a 5-in-1 setup, or they've got a 7.2 setup, or they got a 5.1.4 setup, or these 2 or 3 different numbers. And what do those numbers really mean? So that very first number is your main speakers. So if you hear that someone has a 5 setup, it's your one front speaker, your center speaker, and then your other front speaker. And then it's your 2 rear speakers. So that would make up the 5 setup. Now, if someone has a 7 setup like I do, then you're going to see these 2 mid-room speakers. And also note on these speakers, a lot of times people will go with bi-directional. So you can see there's speakers on this side, there's speakers on that side. And that way, if you do have multiple rows of seating like I do, that the sound travels to, each row. So I really like it. And I think even the immersion process, if something is shooting or giving the effect that it's shooting by you, that it, even sounds better that way when you're using a bi-directional. Rear speakers, percentage-wise, I don't know, if it's 50-50 or whatnot, but some people go with bi-directional, some people go with the bookshelf. As you can see here, I went with the bookshelf style, and yeah, sounds great. Now, if you hear someone has a 9 speaker setup, typically that means they have an additional speaker above each one of their front speakers to make up that 9, but that's a little less common. Typically, you're either going to hear 5 or you're going to hear 7. Now that middle number, that is the subwoofer. Typically, you'll hear a 1 or a 2. So if someone has 1 subwoofer in their system, like a 5.1 system, they got 1 subwoofer, and typically they put it in the front of the room. Now, I had a 1 subwoofer for a very long time, but I did go ahead and upgrade to a second subwoofer that I have on this side of the room. And I do like having a 2 subwoofer setup. It does balance things out, and who doesn't like more bass? And then some people that are really into it, they may have 4 subwoofers, so they may have 2 in the front, 2 in the back. If your budget allows it, and you just love that bass, go for it. So that's the second number. The third number is your Atmos speakers. And you may have noticed on like these new 4K movies, if you look on the back of it, if it says it's Dolby Atmos or if it's DTX-X, that X part stands for the Atmos ceiling speakers. And of course, Dolby Atmos stands for the Atmos speakers. So those are the speakers that are in your ceiling. So as you can see in my setup, I've got 2 in the front, 2 in the rear. And then I kind of have them pointed towards the seats. And those speakers really give you the immersion that if something's flying above, like a helicopter or a plane going above, I think the way they've got it, you can actually have almost an infinite amount of Atmos speakers, but in reality, people typically have either 2 that they put in the center, or they've got 4 with what like I have, but you can definitely go higher if you like. Let's see. I guess the next point would be, how do you power these speakers? And personally, I like to keep things simple. Now, some people may get like a preamplifier, have multiple amps, things to that nature, but I like a receiver that just kind of handles everything for me. So basically, for my setup that has 7 main speakers and 4 ceiling Atmos speakers, you typically need a flagship receiver or maybe one model down from the receiver to be able to power that many speakers. So this one particularly can do the 7 main and the 4 Atmos. Now, as far as the subwoofers, power-wise, 99% of the subwoofers out there have their own internal power. They have their own amplifier built in. So really, the receiver is just sending the sub signals to the subwoofer. So no power needed for that. And a lot of the lower models will allow for like a preamp to be plugged in. So say if the receiver can only power 5 speakers and it has an amp option that you can plug in, you can buy an amp to power 2 additional speakers, and typically that amp is going to power the 2 front speakers, because those are typically the ones they're going to be the most power hungry. So yeah, that kind of goes over the receiver. Also, flagship receivers, you know, Pioneer, Denon, they typically are pretty darn expensive receivers, Yamaha. But what I've noticed is at the end of the year, if they're coming out with another model, they usually run some really great sales. I mean, sometimes half off. I think I got this receiver for half off, and I even noticed this year that some of the flagship receivers, there must be a new model coming out this year. So at the end of 2023, there were some sales where they were like half off, and that's kind of where I pull the plug to get it. And the receiver is also great that all your video sources could be ran to the receiver, and then you have one out that goes to your TV. Now, I have a TV and I have the projector. Most of these flagship receivers have 2 HDMI outs, so I'm covered. But if I had a receiver that only had 1 HDMI out, I'd have to get an HDMI switcher to be able to switch the 2. So to keep things simple, I do run everything to the receiver and then use the 2 outs to go to the TVs. Now, if I was a hardcore serious gamer and the lag time was the utmost importance to me, I would probably run the video source directly to the TV and use the TV's sound out to go to the receiver, just so there wouldn't be that little bit of lag from going from the receiver to the TV. But really, those are for some really hardcore. I've been doing it this way. And really, I don't notice much, but I know people that are really hardcore into it, you know, maybe they would. So that kind of goes over the receiver part. I guess next is kind of going over the screens and the video options. Now, I am a big fan of having a regular TV, as you see here, but then having a drop-down screen for the actual movie watching. Now, 90% of the time, I'm just casually watching TV, kind of in and out of the room, so I'll just have this TV on. I'm also kind of big into the Beachbody workouts, so like the Body Beast, the P90X, Insanity, that kind of stuff. I drag some of my stuff out here. I just pop it on this TV, and I do my workouts. But then when it comes to actual movie watching time, that's when I drop down the screen to actually watch the movie. So let me find the remote here, show you guys. So this screen here is a 106-inch screen. If I had a wider room, I probably would go with at least 120. But the type of material, this really does not pass through sound well. so I did not want to block any of the speakers. And also, when you're getting screens, if you want a screen that hardly has any wrinkles in it, you need to get a tab tension screen. So it's got this wire in it, and it's got little knobs here on the bottom that you can tighten that wire, and that really pulls the screen taut. That way you won't have any type of wrinkles. Now typically it's like an extra, I don't know, $400, $500, $600 to have the tab tension system versus just a regular drop down. But if you're afraid of wrinkles, I would recommend going with that. And I guess just some of the room environment we can kind of go over. Now this isn't a basement, so all the floors are concrete, but it is best to have carpet instead of having like a tile or wood floors or things to that nature. And the reason being is sound. You do not want the sound waves to bounce a lot. Where if it's a hard surface, it will bounce. But with carpet, it kind of absorbs some of those sound waves. So it is optimal to have carpet material. And that's why in the movie theaters, you see carpet all the time. Now, as far as the walls, as you guys can see, I'm a mega collector. Optimally, you want the same thing for the walls. You don't want things bouncing off. And that's why you see in a lot of home theaters people have where it almost looks like pieces of canvas on their walls. Some of the canvas may have art on there, but that's used to kind of absorb some of the sound and keep the bouncing off the walls. Now, I love having these movie replica props, and I don't know, it just brings so much good memories when I see these things. For me, it's definitely worth sacrificing having that optimal sound and having this. But if you're really going for 100% sound, you would want to put some type of sound treatment on your walls also. And if you want like the most immersive experience with the projector, you want things to be as black as possible. So I painted the ceilings black here. I mean, ultimately, even this back wall, if you want it to be fully immersive, you would also, you know, paint that section black too, as black as you can get it. And that's another thing when you're looking at getting your video source. Now this TV here is an OLED TV. And you probably noticed when you go to the store, like OLEDs are costing like 3 times the price of a lot of TVs. And the big reason why is OLEDs can get true black, whereas no other technology can get absolutely black, but an OLED can. And that absolutely black contrasting with the different colors is just going to make the image pop the very most. And you'll hear the same thing in the projector world. Now, you're never going to get true black in the projector world, but some projectors do black a lot better than other projectors, and those are the ones that are kind of highly sought after. Now, I've been a fan of, I would say, the biggest bang for your buck budget projector out there is the Epson UB series projectors. The UB stands for ultra black. I think that's the best bang for the buck. JVC also makes a projector line that does blacks really well. In fact, the projector I had, 2 projectors before that, was one of the JVC models. Both excellent projectors. I think Sony does a nice job too. And I'm sure I've been a little bit out of the game in the last couple of years. I don't know what other technology has kind of come out that maybe even is good to invest in. I know that using a laser source instead of a lamp source is starting to come a little more prevalent. And I'm sure the next model of Epson Ultra Blacks will probably have the laser, and you won't have to deal with the light bulbs anymore, which eventually do get dimmer over time and will burn out, whereas the laser, as far as I know, I think they don't really get dimmer, and they got a really long lifespan. So probably next upgrade will be a laser projector. But yeah, guys, I thought I'd just kind of give this 101 on home theaters, and got any questions, just hit me up in the comments, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Till next time.